Ladies and gentlemen, hello. What? I'm so glad that you're here because I was just thinking, I was in all of my VR gear and I was just thinking, man, I don't think enough people are talking about the effects of cuddling in VR. At least I certainly am not. And I've wanted to for a little bit, but I haven't been as used to the system as I've wanted to be in order to have thoughts about the system. But I certainly have thoughts about the system because we've cuddled enough times, me and the fish, and gotten close enough times and we're like figuring out a little bit more about how it has to look like with full body tracking, what the foibles are, how to like arrange pillows and all sorts of stuff like that, right? So I thought it'd be fun to make a video about what some of that experience is like, and not so much physically how you have to, because you have to only be in certain positions when you only have base stations in so many places, things like that. Like you're a little bit limited, but it's excellent when you get a handle on how you have to pull it off. But I want to take a second to talk about how it feels when you're having, like, when your furry VR boyfriend is, you know, petting you and caressing with your hair and just being really sweet. No one's really talking about that, and I just think that's something that I would have been really curious about when I was starting to get into VR and when I was like thinking about being in a VR relationship, and I thought it would be a good public service to talk about it. I'm talking about it for you, good people at home, the viewers who need to know the effects of cuddling in VR, which is kind of what it's like. So let's get to it. Up first is there's been loads of times in the real world that I've been cuddling and it just hasn't felt right. If I don't like the person, or sometimes I'm just like, okay, well, we did the dude, like, we did the deed, and so now there's a little bit of like, how long do you have to arbitrarily wait as you're cuddling and being sweet before I'm allowed to leave if I'm like really not in a good headspace? And that's how I decided to treat that casual social encounter, which is not how I usually operate, especially like these days. That doesn't happen anymore. But even when I've been in relationships and there's been a lot of resentment there and we're cuddling in bed, then like their touch feels really bad to me. So a physical cuddle is not guaranteed to feel good at all. And if you're not mentally there, then a physical touch, either like it won't feel good or sometimes it just feels really negative. And that's a bummer. So right away, real world cuddles aren't automatically awesome. So too can a virtual cuddle feel awesome even if physically it's not there. Because when we're in a mirror looking at ourselves, and I finally understand what mirror dwellers are, and I never thought it would be me. My life has just gotten very strange lately, and I'm here for it, but it's a little bit strange, if you couldn't tell. And the short end of it is that it feels deeply emotionally satisfying to understand that there's someone who wants to spend time with me and wants to, treat me sweet. And there's not, I want to talk about it specifically, but I don't want to use language which is just really delicate. I don't want to be too direct with it. But when this is taking place, I think you guys just being really sweet together and cuddly and comforting and just how boyfriends are when you're watching movies and doing platonic things. But the fact that it's in VR and there's nothing physical about it unlocks something inside of my head, at least, and I think it's something that a lot of people who experience VR relationships also feel. Because of that strictly emotional component, there's nothing physical taking place. So they just emotionally want to be with me. They've just decided to also, in their house, be in their VR setup and spend time with me online, but in our, virtual forms with full body and just how we've decided to present ourselves when we have the ability to be anything. And in that world where we can be anything, do anything, and spend time with anyone, he decided to spend time with me. That feels remarkably special, especially during times when we're not even watching TV and we're just cuddling and we're emotionally together. And I've been in so many relationships where we are not emotionally together, even though physically we are in the same space. So when you're in this style of relationship, at least from my experience, and I'm in a very special VR relationship, I lucked out in a really big way. But a virtual cuddle feels emotionally more satisfying, borderline, than a physical one is guaranteed to be. And it's just another manner of relationship. It's not a big deal. but something about that disembodiment really tickles me. And some of that, I think, is I've been emotionally challenged for a whole bunch of my life. So to be in a position where strict emotional needs are being met, and you feel a virtual cuddle on the inside, and maybe some people have phantom touch and they can actually like physically feel, I believe that's probably a skill you can train up and teach yourself how to feel. But I can emotionally feel when we're being really close and sweet together. It's addicting in a way, but that's just a relationship. You can be addicted to your partner in ordinary relationships too. They just want to spend a lot of time together, and it feels fantastic. And the fact it's so disembodied allows me to feel it more richly, which is what the whole furry fandom is about in the first place. We're all fantasy creatures over here, so you can put whatever you need into the fantasy creature because it's not human, which opens it up for more expressions of humanity in strange ways. I've got thoughts about that, and that's for another time. But as far as what the effects are of cuddling in VR, it hits emotionally in such a different way. I could never have anticipated it. And there can be an element of carnality to it, certainly, and it's very, very intense. But even when you are just watching TV in a room with friends and you're just like up against each other on the virtual couch or whatever, being together in VR feels almost more decisive than being together in the physical world. It's hard to say, and maybe that's just because I've always had a hard attachment to like my body a little bit. Like there's something going on there. But cuddling in VR hits something emotional in a very specific, unique way, and it's fantastic. And I thought it would be fun to make a video about that and how just virtual cuddles feel awesome. And no one's making a video about that, so I made a video about that. I feel a little sheepish about this video though. It feels kind of personal, but I feel like doing that on this channel sometimes, so I did. I hope that you enjoyed this video though. And if you're a VR cuddler, congratulations, you figured out the secret. And if you're not, then I kind of recommend it. It's pretty cool. But again, I lucked out with right away, like my first VR relationship and real cuddle session. Like just I found a really great guy. So you might not have a really great guy. So just proceed with caution, because there is a lot of emotional depth and heft to it. So if you're not emotionally anchored, you might get taken for a ride, and not in a good way. So be careful, exercise caution. But if you're in the right circumstances with the right people, it is the opportunity for a really good time and special and fulfilling. And I thought I would make a video about that because no one else seems to be. So I did. I hope you guys have a good day, though. I hope it is everything that you dream and more.